I stood at the edge of the pier where I had once scattered my grandmother's ashes, watching hired crews drape white linens and string fairy lights across the backyard of what was supposed to be my home. The very place that held the weight of my childhood summers was now being staged as the perfect wedding venue for my sister. They didn't know I'd been documenting every single step of this betrayal. My name is Elena Ward. I'm 29 years old, a decorated Army officer who spent nearly a decade serving overseas, only to come home and discover that my family had stolen the one thing my grandmother left me, her lake house. A place valued at nearly $500,000, but worth far more in memories. Growing up, I was the dependable one, the disciplined daughter, the one who shouldered responsibilities without complaint. Meanwhile, my younger sister Marissa was coddled like royalty, spoiled, adored, shielded from consequence. My parents always said I was too rigid, too serious, as though strength was a flaw. I wasn't the daughter who could do no wrong. But what they overlooked was that discipline and strategy aren't weaknesses. They're weapons. If your family has ever taken what was rightfully yours, leave your story in the comments. This community stands together. The betrayal began 3 months ago at my grandmother's funeral. After the service, we gathered in the lawyer's office for the reading of her will. The air was heavy with leather-bound books and the bitter smell of stale coffee. When the lawyer finally spoke, his words cut through the silence. The lake house shall pass to Elena Ward as previously agreed with Mrs. Ward. My parents went pale. Marissa collapsed into a storm of tears, mascara streaking down her cheeks like war paint gone wrong. She must have been confused in her final years, my father muttered, waving his hand dismissively as though the lawyer wasn't sitting right there. My mother leaned across the table, clutching my hand with surprising force. Elena, sweetheart, you know how much that house means to Marissa. And then the manipulation began in full force. Marissa's sobs grew louder. But Grandma promised me, she said I could have my wedding there, she always told me. Her cries echoed against the wooden walls like artillery fire. My parents flanked me like a coordinated unit, pressing in from both sides. Be the bigger person, Elena, my father demanded, his tone leaving no room for dissent. Family comes first, my mother added, her nails digging into my skin. Every instinct screamed at me to stand my ground, but against the relentless pressure I caved. I agreed to let Marissa use the house for her wedding. Just one day, I told myself. What could possibly go wrong? My parents promised they'd handle all the arrangements so I wouldn't need to worry. 2 weeks later, I drove down the gravel driveway to check on preparations. The sound of tires crunching over the stones was a melody of memory, but when I rounded the corner, the sight stopped me cold. A bright red sold sign pierced the lawn like a stake in the heart. Moving trucks crowded the porch, strangers hauling out my grandmother's antique furniture as if it were junk. I stumbled from the car, my chest tight. A realtor in a crisp blue blazer walked toward me, her voice infuriatingly cheerful. Are you with the movers? She asked. The new owners are thrilled. This property has incredible potential as a wedding venue. I couldn't breathe. My pulse thundered in my ears. Hands shaking, I yanked my phone from my pocket and dialed the number I knew too well. My parents. My mother picked up on the third ring, her tone casual, almost cheerful, as if she hadn't just gutted my future. Oh, sweetheart, we had to sell it. Marissa deserves her dream wedding. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. The so-called venue meeting was held at an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place where crystal glassware gleamed under chandeliers. I stormed in with the bright red sold sign I'd ripped from the yard still clutched in my hand, my palms shaking with fury. How could you sell my house without even telling me? I demanded, slamming the sign down on the table. My father didn't even look up from his steak. That property was too much responsibility for you anyway, Elena. You should be thanking us. Marissa threw her napkin across the table in mock outrage. I'm the one getting married. I need this more than you ever would. Her voice rose higher with every word, drawing stares from nearby tables. Even the wedding planner, with her perfect blowout and tablet in hand, looked at me with disdain. I'm sorry, but who exactly are you? I thought this was a family planning session. That was the moment I realized. They'd erased me from my own story. But the betrayals were only beginning. When I got my hands on the sale documents, my stomach dropped. My signature was there, neat and careful. My father's handwriting. Forged. My hands shook as I flipped the pages. The account that was supposed to hold my share of the inheritance? Completely drained. Where's my money? I asked later, standing in their living room, the same space where I'd once unwrapped Christmas gifts as a child. My father waved a dismissive hand. We invested it in Marissa's future. You wouldn't understand all the fees and expenses. But I did the math. The wedding was $80,000. The house sold for $400,000. Where was the rest? My mother's voice came next, dripping with guilt and manipulation. After everything we've done for you, Elena, this is how you repay us? The second betrayal came at a family dinner 2 weeks later. The dining room was buzzing with chatter as relatives fawned over Marissa's upcoming wedding. The smell of roast beef filled the air, but my appetite was gone. Aunt Susan smiled across the table. Marissa, you're so lucky your parents bought you such a perfect venue. It must have cost them a fortune. I finally spoke up. Actually, that was my inheritance. The room froze for half a second. Then Uncle Robert barked out a laugh, nearly spilling his coffee. Elena's always been jealous of Marissa's success. Some people just can't stand to see others happy. Marissa's eyes welled on cue. I can't believe my own sister wants to ruin the happiest day of my life. And once again I was cornered into apologizing, publicly in front of everyone, just to keep the peace. My reputation smeared as bitter and selfish, while they clapped her on the back like a victim. The third betrayal cut deepest. Though it had once been my property, I was shut out of every detail of the planning. The day I tried to visit, security guards barred me at the gate. Sorry, ma'am. Orders are no family drama allowed on site. I later discovered my parents had hired luxury coordinators with the money they stole from me. Meanwhile, Marissa's social media overflowed with posts. So blessed my parents surprised me with my dream venue. Every post was a knife to the ribs. And then the final insult came on a phone call. Maybe this will teach you not to be so possessive about material things, my mother chided. It's not very Christian of you. But here's the thing, they thought every betrayal was breaking me. They didn't realize each one was hardening me. What they didn't know was that my years in uniform, and my later work in legal strategy, had taught me exactly how inheritance fraud works. And during my lunch breaks I was quietly gathering ammunition, researching precedents, cases, loopholes. Preparing. Forgery of a signature isn't just a betrayal, it's a felony. Case after case I reviewed proved it. People had gone to prison for exactly what my parents had done. And the deeper I dug, the darker it got. My parents hadn't just liquidated my inheritance for Marissa's wedding. They'd siphoned it into their own debts. Maxed out credit cards, overdue loans, even a second mortgage. While they imagined me crying in silence, I was mobilizing for war. I began recording our conversations in secret. On one tape, my father's voice was clear as day. We did what we had to do. Elena will get over it eventually. Through contacts in the legal network I'd built after leaving the service, I secured copies of every fraudulent document. The forged deeds. The rushed sale contract. The bank transfers. Each signature in my father's precise penmanship. I even had videos of my grandmother, frail but lucid, explicitly stating the lake house was mine. When I presented the evidence to Marcus Chin, a senior partner at a top firm I occasionally consulted with, he leaned back in his leather chair, eyes narrowing. Elena, this isn't family drama. This is prosecutable fraud. The firm took my case pro bono, framing it as training ground for their junior attorneys. My supervisor smirked grimly. They picked the wrong army officer to rob. Meanwhile, my family's arrogance swelled. With what remained of my stolen inheritance, they hosted an extravagant anniversary party. Marissa flooded Instagram with photos of a European honeymoon, tagging luxury resorts with captions like, "Blessed beyond measure." At the country club, my father bragged about his financial savvy and claimed he was teaching me responsibility. My mother told her friends I had finally learned not everything can be handed to me. I learned they'd even created a private family group chat, without me, where they mocked my obsession with my grandmother's house. A cousin forwarded screenshots. The cruelty was breathtaking. Marcus expanded the team, bringing in a digital forensics expert and a bank investigator. The evidence piled higher than storm clouds. Forged signatures confirmed. Bank accounts showing unauthorized withdrawals. A property sold hastily and under market value. Sarah Monroe, an old military friend turned private investigator, tailed my parents and provided photos of their lavish new lifestyle. They've been living beyond their means for years, she told me over coffee. The district attorney agreed to prosecute. Elena, Marcus said gravely, they're going to lose everything. The house. Their reputation. Maybe even their freedom. I hesitated. They're still my family. He didn't blink. Family doesn't commit felonies against their own. The final straw came with Marissa's big announcement, her pregnancy. She posted about raising her child in the family lake house, while my parents gushed online about how proud they were to secure their daughter's future. Then came the thank you card from Marissa and her husband. Thanks for understanding that some dreams are bigger than personal attachments. Love, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson. That was it. The line in the sand. When their anniversary party invitation arrived, hosted at my stolen property, I knew the battlefield had been chosen. I arrived with Marcus and a leather folder heavy with legal documents. The evening air was warm, fairy lights strung through the trees I had climbed as a child. Conversations faltered as we walked in. My mother froze mid-sip, champagne glass trembling. Elena, why would you bring a lawyer to a family celebration? I stepped into the center of the gathering, feeling calmer than I had in years. I'm here to serve you with papers. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The band's music suddenly sounded garish against the silence. Marcus stepped forward, his voice firm, professional, final. Mr. and Mrs. Ward, you are being served with charges of felony inheritance fraud, forgery, and grand theft. My father's face flushed purple, his hand curling into a fist. This is ridiculous. Elena gave us permission, my father roared, desperate, clinging to his last lie. Without a word, I pulled my phone from my jacket pocket and tapped play. His own voice poured into the warm evening air, carried over the music and the clinking glasses. We forged Elena's signature, but she'll never be able to prove it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's face drained of color. You recorded us? Your own parents, she whispered. I met her eyes, steady as steel. The same way you stole from me. Your own daughter. I opened the folder in my hands and began laying out the evidence like a commander spreading battle plans. Forged contracts, fraudulent bank transfers, witness statements. Marissa staggered back, her hand over her mouth. Wait, you mean the house money wasn't yours to give? Marcus stepped forward, his voice cutting through the whispers. Mr. and Mrs. Ward embezzled $400,000 from Elena, using nearly half to cover personal debts. The family's disbelief was palpable. My uncle Robert, who had laughed at me weeks before, stammered, "So Elena actually owned the house?" Legitimately. You could feel the shame ripple outward as realization hit. They had all mocked the victim. Then headlights swung into the drive. A district attorney's investigator stepped forward with arrest warrants in hand. The fairy lights strung across the yard seemed to flicker as my parents finally understood the gravity of what was happening. The sale is being reversed, I said evenly. The new owners are cooperating with authorities. My father lunged for words, his face purple with rage. You can't do this to your own family. I felt taller than I ever had in uniform. You already did it to me. I'm just returning the favor. Marissa's tears smeared her perfect makeup. What about my wedding? What about the baby? For the first time I felt no guilt. What about my inheritance? What about my rights? They tried every trick, every manipulation. This will destroy our family. But I was beyond their reach now. You destroyed it the moment you chose theft over honesty. The crowd shifted. Aunt Susan's voice cut through the silence. How could you steal from your own daughter? And then Mrs. Chin, my grandmother's dearest friend, stepped forward. Your grandmother wanted Elena to have that house. She told me so herself many times. When the officers stepped in and cuffed my parents, I felt something I had never experienced before. True, unshakable justice. I turned to the stunned gathering. The lake house is being returned to me, along with every stolen dollar, plus damages. Marissa sobbed as reality set in. Her dream wedding, her honeymoon, all of it had been paid for with stolen money. One by one, extended family members approached me, some apologizing, some hanging their heads in shame. Today I have full ownership of my grandmother's home, restored exactly as she envisioned it. A sanctuary, not a stage for lies. My parents face criminal charges and their reputations lie in ruins. Marissa eventually apologized, even offering to repay what she could. The rest of the family learned to respect my boundaries, recognizing me not as the difficult daughter, but the one who stood her ground. What I learned. Sometimes the people who teach you to endure the most pain are the very ones who inflict it. But with the right knowledge, and the courage to use it, you never have to accept theft even from blood. Justice is rarely comfortable. But it is always necessary. If your family has ever stolen what was rightfully yours, know this. You are not alone. Drop your location in the comments. I want to hear from my fellow warriors. Tell me about a time you had to legally fight your own blood. Your victories deserve to be celebrated. Your battles deserve to be heard. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe family doesn't excuse crime. Stick around, I've got more stories of people who used the law to fight back and win.